The snowstorm blanketed everything in a blinding white. The wind howled through the mountain passes, carrying fine snowflakes like thousands of sharp needles brushing against the cabin's windowpanes. Inside, Alex sat curled up in an old armchair near the fireplace, the warm flames dancing on his rugged, weathered face. For him, nights like this were the reason he chose to live alone on the mountain, far from the noise and chaos of urban life. He took a sip of hot tea, letting the warmth spread through his body, listening to the sound of crackling fire and the storm's roar outside. It was peaceful, though tinged with solitude. But that was just how Alex liked it. Suddenly, a strange noise pierced through the storm's cacophony. A faint scratching at the door, as though someone, or something, was trying to get his attention. Alex frowned, straining to listen, wondering if his mind was playing tricks on him. Then came a weak whimper, compelling him to rise from his chair. Who could possibly be out here at this hour? In a storm like this? He moved toward the door, feeling the chill seep through the gaps despite the roaring fire. Carefully, he cracked the door open, only to have the wind rush in, making him shiver. In front of him stood a German shepherd, trembling. Its thick fur was matted with snow, and its eyes were filled with a desperate plea for help. The creature looked exhausted, its legs barely able to hold it up. Alex didn't hesitate, opening the door wider and motioning for the dog to come inside. It staggered forward, nearly collapsing as it entered. Alex quickly shut the door to keep the biting cold out, then turned his attention to the animal now curled up on the wooden floor, panting heavily, its eyes still full of gratitude. He knelt down, gently touching the dog's ice-cold fur. "What happened to you?" Alex murmured, as though the dog could answer. Grabbing a thick towel, he began to wipe away the snow clinging to its body. The dog shuddered but gradually relaxed under the warmth of his touch. Alex draped an old blanket over it, then stoked the fire to increase the heat. The dog glanced around, still a little panicked, but its eyes softened as it sensed Alex's care. He brought over a bowl of warm water, setting it down in front of the dog. "Drink up. You need your strength." The dog lowered its head, taking small sips, its ears drooping from exhaustion. Alex sat down beside it, his gaze fixed on the strange creature that had appeared in the storm, though he had no idea where it had come from or why it had wandered here. Alex felt a deep connection forming. Time passed, the storm outside continuing its relentless assault. But inside the small cabin, warmth began to take over. Alex decided to name the dog Thor, a strong name for a creature that had shown such resilience in surviving the storm. "From now on, you won't be alone," he said, gently stroking Thor's head. The dog closed its eyes, as if understanding his words. Alex knew that tonight was the beginning of something bigger, a bond that could never be broken between him and Thor. Alex held Thor in his arms, trying to share his warmth with the freezing dog. The fire crackled in the hearth, its glow dancing across the room, while the howling wind outside provided a haunting backdrop. Thor was beginning to feel better, his body relaxing and his eyes slowly closing in an exhausted slumber. Alex sat there, his thoughts racing, trying to piece together how a dog could end up lost in such a brutal snowstorm. But before he could reach any conclusions, another sound startled him. The soft scratching at the door came again, this time gentler, as if the source lacked the strength to knock forcefully. Alex frowned, his heartbeat quickening. He stood, glancing at Thor, now peacefully breathing in his sleep, moving cautiously to the door. Alex opened it slightly. And this time, he saw another dog. Smaller than Thor. It was shivering uncontrollably. Huddled in the snow. Its bright, fearful eyes looked up at Alex. And its fur was drenched. Clinging to its frail body. Without hesitation, Alex opened the door wider and scooped up the little dog. "How did you end up here too?" he murmured. Feeling the tiny creature trembling in his arms. He placed it gently on a large towel near the fireplace. Carefully drying its fur. The little dog quivered. Its eyes fixed on Alex as if silently thanking him while enduring the process. Looking at the two dogs now lying near the fire, Alex couldn't help but wonder. "Where did you come from? And are you connected to Thor?" he mused aloud. His gaze shifting between the two animals. Thor, sensing the presence of the smaller dog, opened his eyes and looked at it for a moment before wagging his tail. The smaller dog edged closer to Thor, as if seeking familiarity and comfort. The scene before Alex was astonishing. There was clearly a bond between the two that he couldn't ignore. Alex decided to name the smaller dog Luna. The name, evoking gentleness and serenity, suited its petite size and delicate demeanor. Luna looked up at Alex when he called her name, seemingly accepting it immediately. But what concerned Alex more was the question of their origins. How could they have appeared here? In the middle of such a ferocious snowstorm? Where had they come from? And why did they find his cabin? As he pondered, Alex couldn't look away from how Thor and Luna interacted. Though both were clearly exhausted, they seemed to draw comfort from each other. Luna leaned gently against Thor, while Thor lowered his head to lick away the remaining snow from Luna's fur. Alex felt a pang of emotion. He wasn't one to believe in coincidences. But this situation defied ordinary explanation. Perhaps this wasn't just chance. Maybe fate had brought these two creatures to him for a reason. He resolved to take care of them as part of his family. At the same time, Alex knew he needed to learn more about them. Perhaps they were lost. Or worse, abandoned. Once the storm passed, he would search the area for clues. But deep down, Alex had a feeling that Thor and Luna were not just two stray dogs. The way they appeared, the way they seemed drawn to his cabin, and the unmistakable bond they shared, all pointed to something greater. The wind outside seemed to have softened. But Alex's curiosity only grew stronger. He looked back at Thor and Luna, now curled up together, completely at ease in the warmth of the small cabin. Alex sighed, sitting down beside them. "Wherever you came from, I promise to protect and care for you," he said, gently stroking them both. Thor wagged his tail weakly, while Luna closed her eyes, exhaling softly in sleep. The next morning, pale sunlight filtered through the snow-laden trees, bringing a faint warmth to the new day. The storm had passed, leaving behind a serene, almost eerie silence over the endless white landscape. Alex stood outside his cabin, his eyes fixed on the tracks in the snow leading into the forest. The tracks, likely from Thor and Luna, piqued his curiosity. Deciding he couldn't ignore this, Alex donned his thickest coat, grabbed a flashlight and a small knife, and set off to follow the faint trail. As he trudged along the narrow paths leading deeper into the woods, Alex felt the peculiar stillness surrounding him. The crunching of snow beneath his boots was the only sound in the otherwise silent, snow-covered forest. The tracks led him farther and farther, drawing him into the dense wilderness. His heart began to race when he started to notice strange clues along the way: a torn piece of fabric, a few old ropes, and finally, A small abandoned shack hidden among the ancient trees. The shack was weathered and decrepit, its exterior rotting and covered with moss. Alex stopped to survey the area, ensuring he was alone, before cautiously approaching. When he pushed the door open, the smell of mildew and decay hit him, making him recoil momentarily. Inside, the sight was nothing short of horrifying. Rusted metal cages were scattered haphazardly. Some toppled over, others still standing. Stray clumps of fur littered the floor, alongside faded bloodstains on the old wooden planks. It was evident this place had been a holding site for dogs. Alex approached one of the cages, his gaze landing on something inside. It was an old dog collar with a faded name tag, its metal tarnished from neglect. He picked it up, anger welling up inside him. What had happened here? Who was responsible for this cruelty? As he explored further, Alex discovered a battered table with a filthy notebook resting on top. Flipping through its yellowed pages, he found handwritten entries detailing the dogs that had been kept here. Numerous names were listed, including Thor. Alex's heart sank as he read the description. Thor, German Shepherd. 3 years old. Strong temperament. Sale price, $1,500. Luna was also listed, with a note, small breed. Easily trainable. Sale price, $800. The words stabbed at his conscience. This wasn't a rescue operation, it was an illegal animal trade hub. Anger consumed Alex. He gripped the notebook tightly, his frustration and fury mixing with a sense of helplessness. How could anyone treat innocent creatures this way? As Alex scanned the shack again, he noticed more signs of the atrocities committed here: scratch marks on the walls, scattered bone fragments, and old chains strewn across the floor. It was clear this place had been a living hell for the dogs confined here. Alex knew he couldn't let this go. Whoever was behind this operation needed to be stopped. But first, he had to protect Thor and Luna, ensuring they would never face such cruelty again. He took photos of the notebook and the evidence in the shack with his phone, determined to report everything to the authorities as soon as he returned. Alex also decided to keep the notebook, as it could serve as a crucial lead in uncovering the perpetrators behind this illegal trade. Before leaving, Alex knelt down and placed a hand on one of the toppled cages. "I promise I won't let this continue," he whispered, his eyes filled with resolve. As he stepped out of the shack, the cold snow bit at his skin, but his heart burned with determination. Thor and Luna had been lucky to escape this nightmare, and Alex would do everything in his power to ensure no other dogs would have to endure the same fate. Alex was about to leave the abandoned shack, the notebook clutched tightly in his hand as undeniable evidence of the horrors that had taken place there. The bitter wind still whistled through the forest, but Alex didn't care. He just wanted to get back to the cabin, protect Thor and Luna, and figure out how to expose what he had uncovered. However, as he stepped out of the shack's dilapidated door, Alex sensed something was wrong. Footsteps, soft but deliberate, echoed behind him. He turned around to see a stranger emerging from the shadows of the trees. The man looked rugged and suspicious, wearing a long black coat, his sharp eyes fixed on Alex. "I believe you're holding something that doesn't belong to you," the man said in a calm yet threatening tone. Alex tightened his grip on the notebook, his gaze unwavering. "And who are you?" he asked, trying to keep his composure. The man stepped closer, his eyes flicking to the notebook in Alex's hand. "Name's Grant. That belongs to me. Hand it over, and I'll pretend this never happened," Grant said, his voice growing colder. Alex could tell this wasn't a request, it was a threat. He stepped back, realizing Thor had already positioned himself in front of him. Fur bristling. Body tense. Ready to defend. Luna, though smaller, moved beside Thor, growling softly but determinedly. Grant seemed unfazed by the dogs. I don't want trouble. But I'm warning you, give me the notebook. Or you'll regret it. Alex could feel the danger radiating from Grant. But he didn't back down. This notebook is proof of what you've done. I'm not giving it to you, he said firmly. Grant narrowed his eyes, taking another step closer. But Thor growled louder, poised to attack. You're a fool, Grant hissed, pulling a small knife from his coat. The blade glinted in the dim light, making Alex's pulse quicken. But his mind stayed sharp. Thor, stay back, Alex whispered. But Thor didn't budge. His gaze locked on Grant, ready to strike. Luna, equally fearless, stood firmly beside him. Grant smirked, then lunged forward suddenly. But Thor was faster. With a powerful leap, Thor knocked Grant into the snow, pinning him down. Grant struggled to fight back, but Thor's weight and strength kept him firmly in place, the knife slipping out of his grasp. Alex rushed forward, stomping on the knife and picking it up, keeping it out of Grant's reach. Get out of here before I call the police, Alex shouted, his fear now replaced by anger and determination. Grant, pinned under Thor's weight, writhed and sneered. You don't know who you're messing with, he spat through clenched teeth. But seeing the resolute look in Alex's eyes and Thor's unrelenting defense, Grant seemed to realize he had lost. Finally, Grant growled. Fine. I'm leaving. But don't think this is over. Alex signaled Thor to step back. And with one last growl, Thor jumped off, allowing Grant to slowly get to his feet. Grant brushed off the snow, his eyes full of hatred, before turning and disappearing into the dense trees. Alex stood there, breathing heavily, his eyes fixed on the direction Grant had fled. He crouched down, stroking Thor's head. Good boy. You saved me, Alex said, his voice filled with pride and gratitude. Thor licked his hand, his eyes softening but still alert. Luna joined them, nuzzling against Alex's leg as if to reassure herself that everything was all right. As the three of them made their way back to the cabin, Alex felt something had shifted. He was no longer just Thor and Luna's caretaker. A deep, unbreakable bond had formed between them. Alex knew people like Grant wouldn't give up easily. But he also knew he wasn't alone in this fight. With Thor and Luna by his side, Alex felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Returning to the cabin, Alex felt an unusual sense of peace enveloping his small sanctuary. Thor and Luna lay curled up near the fireplace, their steady breathing blending with the soft crackling of the wood, creating a soothing rhythm. The notebook Alex had found sat on the table, a stark reminder of the events that had just unfolded. Without hesitation, Alex decided to report everything to the local authorities. He knew he couldn't face an operation as dangerous as this on his own. The next morning, he drove to the nearest town, bringing the notebook and the photos as evidence. At the police station, Alex recounted everything: how Thor and Luna appeared, how he discovered the abandoned shack, and the signs of illegal animal trading. The officers listened intently, their expressions hardening with anger as they flipped through the notebook. We'll investigate this thoroughly and do everything we can to bring the perpetrators to justice, one officer assured Alex. A sense of relief washed over him, knowing that justice would be served. Yet, he also knew his work wasn't done. Thor and Luna, two vulnerable souls scarred both physically and emotionally, still needed him. Back at the cabin, Alex devoted his time to caring for Thor and Luna. He learned how to heal not just their physical wounds but also their emotional scars. Thor, with his strength and bravery, sometimes revealed a deep sadness in his eyes during quiet moments. Luna, initially timid and fragile, gradually grew more confident and affectionate. Each passing day deepened the bond between Alex and the two dogs, a connection that felt almost unbreakable. One afternoon, while sitting on the porch, Alex called Thor over. The dog obediently approached, sitting beside him, its sharp eyes now softened with a hint of tranquility. "You know, I named you Thor because you're as strong as a god," Alex said, gently stroking Thor's head. "But now I see your strength isn't just in your body, it's in your heart." Thor looked up at Alex, his eyes seeming to shine with understanding. Nearby, Luna wagged her tail happily, sensing the warmth in Alex's voice. Over the following weeks, Alex began to see life differently. He had once chosen solitude in the mountains to escape the world and its pains. But Thor and Luna's presence had shown him that the bond between humans and animals could bring immense strength. Even in the darkest times, he was no longer living just for himself. Thor and Luna needed him, and he realized he needed them too. One day, Alex received a call from the police. They informed him that the notebook he had provided had led to the discovery of a large illegal animal trading network, and several individuals had been arrested. The officers thanked him for his bravery and determination in bringing the matter to light. Alex felt proud. But more than anything, he felt he had done the right thing, not just for Thor and Luna, but for the countless other lives that could have been hurt by these criminals. As winter faded and the snow melted, giving way to lush green sprouts, Alex spent more time exploring the forest around the cabin with Thor and Luna. Thor ran freely, his majestic demeanor always making Alex feel protected. Luna, though smaller, was just as lively and cheerful. The days were filled with laughter and simple joys, something Alex had not thought possible in his solitary life on the mountain. In the evenings, sitting by the warm fireplace, Alex watched the two dogs curled up at his feet. He smiled, feeling a deep sense of hope. Thor and Luna were not just the dogs he had rescued, they had become his family, his source of inspiration, and his reason to face any challenges ahead. Alex realized that sometimes, it's the smallest, most unexpected events that bring the greatest and most meaningful changes. With Thor and Luna by his side, he no longer felt alone, but instead filled with a profound belief in friendship and new hope.